Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top-rated tactical comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Boomerang Freak. He says, the mid-range magician class is the assault. Primary is the AR160 using the M145 3.4 times scope with canted iron sights, a heavy barrel underslung rail, and Eastern Turtle paint. Pistol will be the SW40 with a mini RDS, tri-beam laser, and heavy barrel. Gadget 1 is the M26 Frag, which is kind of a crazy shotgun that shoots frag rounds, and Gadget 2 is the Medic Bag, Nade RGO Impact, Upgrade Defense. Now I gotta say right off the bat, this gun looks weird, using the Eastern Turtle camo with a giant underslung shotgun, and this 3.4 times scope on top, which is just massive, and the canted iron sights. It just looks like some crazy weapon with way too much junk on it. That being said, it actually shoots relatively well, and I can take out targets quite nicely at medium and even longer ranges at times. As for tap firing, it does kind of make sense with this weapon, but the only problem you gotta watch out for is the fact that when you tap fire a gun, your damage per second goes down pretty quickly. So when you run into AEKs and M416s that can kill you at medium range incredibly fast without having to tap fire, you're in a bit of a pickle there. And so that's kind of where you run into some issues with this gun, is the tap firing aspect of it does allow you to kill targets at further ranges, but at medium ranges you are going to get outgunned by most of the assault rifles you run into. As far as sights go, I know this is a pretty popular optic in real life, but in Battlefield it's pretty hard to use. It takes up a lot of the screen with the scope housing. 3.4 times magnification is really unnecessary for assault rifles. They don't really have the accuracy to back it up, and switching to canted iron sights for close quarter engagements is really annoying, because if you watch the animation when you switch to canted iron sights, every time you bring the weapon up you have to do this little rotation thing, and it totally throws me off, and it makes it feel like it takes a lot longer to aim down sights. I don't know, not a fan of canted iron sights for CQB. Rather just run a red dot. I feel like I could be just as accurate at further ranges with an RDS. Now, because I do feel pretty limited with this 3.4 times scope, it does make me play the class the way it's suggested to be played, which is sort of in the midfield. So if I be too aggressive with it, then I get into close quarters and I'm using a 3.4 times sight or my canted iron sights, and I just feel like I'm at a huge disadvantage. So a lot of the time I'm trying to stay in the midfield and pick people off at a range, but it's difficult, especially when you're on a team that's not being particularly aggressive or not playing the way that you think they should be playing. All of a sudden you find yourself in the front line trying to lead the charge or push the charge, and this gun just isn't really set up for that. Now granted, it does have a respectable rate of fire of 700 rounds per minute and a fairly fast reload of 2 seconds for the short reload, so in all those regards the gun is pretty well balanced. I mean, it doesn't really hold up to a 416 or an AEK for those closer range engagements, but all around it's a pretty well balanced weapon for any engagement distance. It's the attachments that ultimately dictate how this gun is going to perform in those situations, and I gotta say, as far as tap firing goes, the heavy barrel is not the correct choice. In Battlefield 4, the heavy barrel increases your first shot recoil. It gets really confusing because hardline and Battlefield 4 attachments operate differently, and it's really annoying. I wish the games could be a little bit more consistent between the games, especially when you spend so long memorizing and figuring out how the attachments work for one game, and then they have all the exact same attachments for another game, but they do different things. Gets way too confusing. But the heavy barrel in Battlefield 4 actually increases your recoil when you fire, so that's what you don't want for a tap fire weapon. For tap fire, you want as little recoil as possible, because every shot you take is getting your first shot recoil multiplier. So if you have a low first shot recoil multiplier and low recoil, it can be achieved, but if you're increasing your recoil, that is the last thing you want for tap firing. And to be honest, using a heavy barrel in real life would not increase your first shot recoil. It's heavier weight on the end of the gun. That means it's going to actually help reduce that first shot recoil. I think Hardline does a better job of recreating the effects of what a heavy barrel would be. I mean, the only downside is that it actually adds a lot of weight to the gun, so maybe reduce the aiming down sight speed, you know, increase that by like 10%. That would be a realistic characteristic of the heavy barrel, whereas the only benefit that they got right is the idea that it reduces the amount of spread per shot, because Heavy barrels heat up slower, which means you have better accuracy for a longer period of time in real life, and so they got that right at least. But again, that means that the heavy barrel attachment is specifically designed to help with fully automatic fire weapons in Battlefield 4, not tap fire. So it's pretty much the exact opposite attachment you would want if you're recommending the tap fire. Using the angled foregrip makes a lot more sense since it reduces your first shot recoil. Every single shot you take in tap fire is your first shot, so it should reduce the overall recoil of your weapon. That would make much more sense on this gun rather than the heavy barrel. So I'd say take the heavy barrel off, put the angled foregrip on this weapon, and that'll help you out a bit. There's a few other barrel attachments that you can mess with to reduce your recoil if needed, but honestly I don't really think you need to with the ARX160, or the AR160. The real gun I believe is called the ARX160. Now, one cool thing about the design of this weapon in real life is that you can actually take the barrel out of the gun very easily and swap it out for something else. So you could literally be carrying a longer, heavier barrel for more marksman practices with this weapon, and then carry something more lightweight for, say, traveling around and just random engagements. And you can swap out the barrels without tools in like a few seconds. That would actually be kind of a cool feature maybe to include on weapons like this, is literally give you the ability to modify them on the field if they have those properties available to them in real life. I believe the ACR, or also known as the ACWR in Battlefield, has the exact same properties. It would be kind of cool to include more of these properties, sort of like how you could attach a suppressor in Counter-Strike on the M4 originally and then take it off, just giving you the option to run suppressed or unsuppressed mid-game. I always thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, I do like the idea of setting up an assault rifle for mid-range combat. I don't know if I would say that the ARX is one of the better ones. In fact, the AN94 now is incredibly good at mid to even long-range combat. So that would be a weapon that I would say is worth looking into to trying setting up specifically for those longer range engagements. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Loadout. Don't forget to leave your tactical themed loadout comments in the comments section. And as always, guys, I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.